Hello, it's George Leoniak, and welcome to New Geometry. This is the first video of 2024, and we're really going to start off with an amazing relationship between Metatrons, let's call it cube for now, and the Krystal Spiral. We're going to see how these two things are related, and we're going to be talking a lot about the 70.528 degree angle pyramid, which I talked about in a video called the Krystal Spiral like never seen before. So we're going to make some cool relationships. And for those people into Metatron's cube, you're going to see Metatron's cube like never seen before and maybe discover that it may not be a cube. So let's go ahead and share the screen. And I'm super excited. This has been in production for quite a while. And I'm excited to bring it to you here in this new year. Let me just share the screen. Okay. The presentation should be up. And so when Metatron meets Krystal, this is the question that we have today. Are these two related? Well, we're going to find out the relationship. They don't look related very much at all, but really what it has to do with is a matter of perspective. How are we looking at these? And really, what is this design of Metatron's cube? It can be considered a lot of things. And I've discovered one way that I've never seen before that's going to make the link between the two. Now, we're gonna have to go through a little bit of material here before we get to that piece, because I really want to give you a better understanding of the pyramid here, this 70.528 cone, we're calling it a cone here, can be placed in a pyramid, and it's a doubling sequence pyramid, which means that as this blue line goes around here, it's in this 90-degree turns here, and in this image, it's in the truncated octahedron, which is the form that contains this pyramid. I'll show you more images of this in a bit. As the cone is projected, as if we're looking at it top down, it's going to follow this arc. Now, this is the outline of the Krystal Spiral. This is just taking 90-degree turns rather than 135. So it's essentially following the same path. Check out the previous video for an in-depth look at a discussion around these spirals. So a little while ago, I made this truncated octahedron. As I said, this is the great container for the pyramid. There can be 6 of these cones that are going to be from this. In this image, we have one directly facing us, one directly behind it to the left and the right, and above and below. And in between that space are these larger hexagonal pyramids, which I'll show you in a moment, also contain this same cone as well, the same angle cone. So this form is a great holder of that pyramid, and you can easily construct this pyramid with sacred geometry techniques. The spiral, the cone itself can be easily constructed. I'll show you an image in a moment of how you can make this cone easily. And the template itself to cut out and fold up the pyramid is all easily within the diagrams as well. Now, I'm going to be doing an incredible class coming up in the next month or so on the Krystal Spiral, and some of the things you'll be seeing in this video, many of the drawings will be in it. But one of the things we'll do in there is actually, here's the cone template, 120-degree angle cone segment there, and there is the template for the cutting out of the pyramid. Now, I talked about that all in the previous video, but in this, right after, in fact, that very night that I did the video for that one last month, I immediately, in the video, I said, well, the 70.528 cone is inside the tetrahedron, which basically means if we take that same cone that I showed you in the square pyramid that you see over here, if I take the same angle cone, now remember, that's fitting in that truncated octahedron that I showed you before, we take the same angle cone, it is in adjacent or tangent. The edges of this are going to be right up to each of the tetrahedron, 3 of the tetrahedron faces. Okay, and that template is, of course, in sacred geometry, flower of life pattern easily, or I'll show you it's even easier than drawing it here. But here are the 2 segments. Here they are cut out. And here I am just making the whole setup just with drawing just a few circles. So there's the tetrahedron net and the cone net as well, because it's just a 120-degree angle cone, and that's all you need, and it fits perfectly into the tetrahedron. Some of this was inspired by a comment on there about remember who the Vesica Pisces is, and that was one of the comments last time. And of course, that Vesica Pisces, or this symbol, at least the fish symbol, the fish bladder symbol as it's called, has always been associated with, let's just say, enlightened figures throughout history contained in the Vesica. Here it is around Christ. And that whole template that I showed you previously is contained within just 2 circles is all you need. And you're able to do the connecting lines to create the pyramid, or, well, the tetrahedron that you'll fold up. And with the root 3 circle, the line that goes through the middle here is root 3. So with half of that length, we come up with the precise location to generate the cone that we need to go in there, all within 2 circles. And this really, for me, epitomizes how simple sacred geometry can be, to go from 2D, 2 dimensions, in just 2 circles and a few lines, to 3 dimensions with placing the cone, which is really the container of the spiral energy, which, remember, is the same cone as this one that you see here, with this doubling sequence spiral on it, all contained right in this simple design. And sacred geometry has the ability to initiate sacred consciousness. So please explore some of the techniques I'm showing you. I think that they'll be very enlightening to help open up a deeper appreciation and understanding of the beauty that's contained within these diagrams, and how they shift your consciousness towards one that can perceive in multi-dimensional ways. So after I did this drawing and continued on the next day, I went into realize that, well, this cone can be placed in a variety of polygon-based pyramids, but there are really, I guess, 4 of these that are listed up here that, let's say, have natural inclination to fit into the forms themselves. I'll describe what that means in a moment when I show you the forms that came from these pyramids. We have our tetrahedron with the cone within inside it, and essentially this cone right here is lining up. The tetrahedron I showed you fits in. We have the square pyramid that's fitting in. I put it in a pentagon one because I wanted to see if there was a pentagon form. I could not find a form that had a pentagon face, because that one's really associated with what's known as the Russian pyramid in the 76.345 degree angle. And I have a lot of information on those videos if you want to explore more of a golden ratio segmented scaling pyramid. Check out those. This is going to be all about the doubling sequence pyramid, which relates very nicely to the flower of life and Metatron cube geometry, in addition to the crystal spiral geometry. We have the hexagon, and we have one that is a fusion of 2 tetrahedra, as if you slid both of those 2 together. Slide 2 tetrahedra together. This is what that would look like from top down. And inside that, that's actually going to create this hexagon right here next to it that is at the core of this. So 2 tetrahedra slid together in that way will create a cone that is contained within this hexagon-shaped pyramid. And it's the same one that's in the tetrahedra, and the square one is part of a different form, but you'll see how that relates in a moment. So I want to just quickly take a look at some of the things I learned about this cone that is related to the number of spirals going in to the center. So basically, if I have a four-sided, okay, so let's say that's the Krystal Spiral, type of top-down view with the spiral going around. This is going on the 90-degree turn segments. Now, as I go along there and turn that into the cone, placing this onto the cone that I'm going to cut out to fold up in there, well, those turns are going to be 150 degrees, and that's actually part of a polygon, a 12-sided polygon. It's just getting smaller and smaller. Now, if I look at the three spirals touching each of the tetrahedron faces on the outside here, those will create a 140-degree angle as it's making its turn towards the center. And that would be based on a 9-sided polygon. Now, if I go from 3 to 6 in the hexagon, and I'm doing a 6-sided spiral touching each of the faces, well, then that's going to be an 18-sided polygon, and that's a 160-degree angle, right? So that's very cool that the spiral is going to change kind of its increments. Its curvature is going to change based on the polygon that we put in and the number of arms the spiral has as it goes around. I'm going to show you another one of these in just a little bit. So just remember, we have 9, 12, and 18 so far. All right, so then I was like, well, I didn't realize this at the time when I did the previous video, but now that we know that the tetrahedron contains that cone beautifully and can cut it out and put it right in all the vesica, I made this form, which is where each of the tetrahedron face is, which is the cubeoctahedron. So we have equilateral triangles and squares. So that's the cubeoctahedron, the Archimedean solid. And that could fit the cone in on each of those faces meeting at the center. Here it is in your square view orientation. And the reason why that there is a smaller square inside of the larger square, now that's half the size, the edge length of this is half the size of the larger square, is because that's the precise location that cone needs to be to also meet at the center of the diagram of this form, the 3D model. So if we go ahead and we said, well, what happens if we make the cone be the larger square, right? Okay, well, you could have it be a shallow cone, and each of these are half of an octahedron, basically. So here's an octahedron. If I just took this and I put it into this form, the cubeoctahedron, it will meet at the center. But if I extend and double that pyramid length of the octahedron, essentially that cone or that pyramid that it's going to contain, if I go off the large one, will just meet on the backside of the form at the center point on the backside. So the square pyramid at this point has to be smaller to meet at the center for the cubeoctahedron, but that is not true for the truncated octahedron, which is the next level out, which will go ahead and meet at the center point, as you see here in this build. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the hexagon face pyramid, which has the same angle cone. Now, back to my image here real quick. This essentially is this hexagon face pyramid, same cone in each of these. Two of these stars, two tetrahedra slid together. That essentially will give you the outline of what you see in this image here. Wrong one. That's when in this image here, that's going to create that little hexagon in the middle. That's going to go down and descend down into the middle of our form here. Once again, here it is from a side view. Here is the views of this, and here it is of the square. This is the square-based one, and as you can see, the square is the same angle as the square cone, that is the same angle as the outline of this hexagonal pyramid. So there's the hexagonal pyramid turned to the side. And here's a view drawn in square view here is the shape, which actually looks like the Cathar grid unit in Galactic Science, the Cathar grid. That actually can be an outline of a hexagon face that can be the base of one of these pyramids. And you could see that that is continuing up. That's going out, turn it around and go back to the center. And there we are going back to the center. So much is really about this base angle of 70.528 and very simple in sacred geometry. It has a base of 1 to 1.5 for the slant angle face there. Yeah, so here it is. I'm basically going to say the same thing again, but with a little more imagery associated with it to just group everything together on one image here to show what's going on with this same 70.528 cone. That's the cone. That's the angle from the base. It's touching the faces, and it doesn't matter what face it's in, because if it's in the truncated octahedron, precisely at this point, it's going to meet the center, the half of the size. Again, remember, there's a doubling sequence, so half the size of the large hexagon. If it's going to meet over here, we've got it in the square faces, not only on the truncated octahedron, which are half the size, but we also have it on the truncated octahedron. No, excuse me, this is the cubeoctahedron down here, half the size, truncated octahedron. We have the full pyramid meeting at the center. And then on those faces, we'll have those hexagon pyramids. And right in the cubeoctahedron here, we've got the tetrahedra with the cone that is probably the simplest to derive it from is right on the cubeoctahedron, right in those tetrahedra. Back to our simple sacred consciousness drawing. There we go, straight to the center. That's where the doubling sequence starts at the 0 point of the cubeoctahedron. And if we look at it in square view, we could turn this into a hexagon. I lost the footage on the last video I did. I'm going to revisit that in the beginning next time as I look at the Cathar grid a little bit more and show you how this all relates. There's the spiral. There's the 90-degree arcs. Remember, I'm just using 90 for this for the sake of ease. But I'm going to show you a little bit more of how we turn this into the bona fide crystal spiral. This is the same cone here, just turned to the side. There's the pyramid and the cone on the inside. And that has the 6 spirals going in there, 12 spirals going in the center. So here is where the crystal spiral is going to come in back into it, or at least the way that the spiral doesn't go 90 around, it makes that jog out, and that's following the outline of octagons, right? So what about the octagon? Well, the octagon, when we turn it into the three-dimensional geometry, is the cone, okay? So when we follow the edges that come off an octagon towards the pinnacle of our pyramid, that is the path that the spiral will follow as it traces its way around the cone. Now, not in a doubling, it's doubling every other, just like this spiral. So this segment here is half the length as this segment, and this segment, half the length, half the length. You're skipping every one, and they're kind of sequentially doubling at these 135-degree turns. Now, I've shown you 2 views here, and this is very cool, is that the octagon in hexagon view, so essentially this is this octagon being flat, tilted just a little bit so we can see the cone from the side, so we could see the base, and in addition, we can see the cone front and back a little bit better than it, rather than if it's just top down or side view, okay, which is over here. So this is top down. So essentially what the crystal spiral is showing us is a top down view. This is my opinion of it based on how it fits into all this other sacred geometry of form and structure, which is multidimensional. It all showing me that it is an ascending or descending spiral, however you want to look at this cone, whether it's going into a form or emerging, going up and out of it. But this is, let's say, starting at a base and coming up towards us following that sequence. And this is the same progression mathematically that the spiral is taking as it reaches its apex, which would be the 0 point up here. Okay, so there's a side view. Those are the 8 octagon edges reaching to the top. These are from the side, and there is the octagon base. And this can be drawn in sacred geometry with some cool techniques to get these cool perspective drawings. Now, this was really fascinating to me. And amazingly, the cone template that is for the octagon version of this, before I showed you 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, and 6, so those other images. But basically, what needed to happen for this is to get the right angle for this spiral to follow 8 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, before it makes it all the way back around to the other side, right? So we want to complete a segment of 8. It's based on the curve of the eternal lotus of life. Now, it's going to have to sequentially just also follow a doubling sequence. So we have to do eternal lotus of life, eternal lotus of life, eternal lotus of life, smaller and smaller within this. There are some other techniques to do it, but that's the simplest to describe it. So we could follow the outline, and as we go around, just like I showed before, the curvature of that spiral on 2D, right, at that segment point is 165. And that's based on a 24-sided polygon. So if you remember before, I showed you some of the outlines for the polygons that are associated with the different forms, the different cones in these forms. Now, this is the full breakdown of this. I didn't realize the octagon one before, but if we're going basically from 3, we have the 9-sided polygon, 12 for the 4-sided. Now, 4, so check this out. Basically, we know from 3 doubled is 6. Well, that's 9 to 18. 12, right, for 4, well, we're going to double 4. Well, that should be 24, and that's 165 degree angle for the 24-sided polygon. So that's what's going on over here. And that's going to be the first 3 points, 1, 2, 3, are in the eternal lotus of life diagram. And these are some lovely cones colored by Nancy Beneroff here, and showing the spiral path that's taken. This is this segment right here folded up, and there's another one which I didn't put in here, that makes it look with the squares at the backside, which looks cool too. All this stuff, all these cones, all this stuff is going to be given out in the class I'll be doing on this, which I think will be a pre-recorded class, just like I did the Metatron's Cube Remastered class at a very affordable price. I'm going to make another Krystal Spiral video walking you through many of these techniques to engage in a hands-on way with the sacred geometry to make your own discoveries and relationship to the forms and spirals and cones and pyramids and all that stuff. All right, so when I figured out this octagon-based pyramid, I said, well, hey, let's go back to our truncated octahedron, and we know that's got square faces, right? And I was going to replace the square faces with the octagon. And this is the form that it makes. I have that right over here. Very interesting looking form that has the octagons. And I decided to put the hexagon faces in there, all meeting in the middle. As I was building the form, I decided to just take a halfway point before I constructed the rest. But there you could see the cone of the octagon going in there, as well as the cone of the hexagon on each of those faces that would essentially be in the same locations as the truncated octahedron. We just have a different type of truncated octahedron here because now it's accommodating the octagon instead of the square. The main point that I did this for is because I really wanted to highlight what the cone is. So this is really a circle around this, and these are just 8 points on the circumference of that circle. And that is what is descending down, doubling as it goes into the center, like I showed you back here well, that's for the hexagon. And for the octagon, it looks like this, right? So that really follows the cone because there's not many forms that, well, I don't know if there are really any that are easily constructible that have octagon faces. Well, here, this could be an octagon faced form, but it has a lot of other interesting curves, joinery here. It's not traditionally, a little frowned upon in traditional polyhedra circles. Okay, so where's the Metatron crystal spiral connection, you may be asking at this point. Hopefully that gave you a nice foundation and just a little more information on the cone, where it's found, why it's important, how it relates to the doubling sequence, and all that. So I wanted to build that little bit of a foundation because now we're going to switch over to looking at we're still got a little more to get before we get to the Metatron's cube design and how that fits in. But we're getting there because we really want to start to apply that other view that I showed you the octagon in, right? The one that was in the seed of life. I want to start making some connections, and we're going to start out by showing what's happening, what the spiral is following when we look at just stacking cubes that are half size of the previous one. So if you just took a bunch of boxes, I mean, literally, this is as easy as the 90-degree, I call this the electrum spiral. It's a more refined version of the crystal spiral, let's say, because it's just going straight to the 90-degree turns. All we have to do is add in an additional point along the way to pick up the octagon version of this, but let's not get too confused with that. Same type of flow, right? But if we want to look at it simply, we're just going to follow the basis of the cubes as it rotates 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees on the backside, 90 degrees. And that's essentially going to follow the same, I don't have the spiral drawn in here, unfortunately, but that's going to follow the same edges of the cubes straight up, back over to this one, back over to that one. So we're just stacking half-size cubes, but as you can see, the pyramid angle itself is going right through the bases of each of those squares at the bottom, okay? And as you see, we've got circles that are contained within, and this image is showing a large octahedron containing all this, that's the blue, large octahedron, with little octahedron inside each cube. So basically what's happening here is that the cube is contained in the octahedron on all of these successively smaller and smaller octahedra. The cube is always contained within octahedra through this way of looking at it. So we have an edge view version of a cube and a vertex view, and essentially it's cubes on top of cubes. That will give you, at half size, that will give you the angle for this 70.528 pyramid. So this has a direct connection back to this flower of life pattern. Now, this flower of life pattern, and as I'm building closer and closer to seeing how this is going to relate to the Metatron's cube, which is based on hexagonal geometry, and the flower of life, or the fruit of life, or tree, you know, the whole sequence of seed of life. Well, we'll just call this the hexagonal circle template, basically, this flower of life type of pattern. Well, there is the pyramid. And I could draw it at multiple scales, and I'm just showing you in one direction here. I'm going to show you other directions in a little bit of how you could point in the different directions of the 60-degree axis here. But for now, basically, you could stack these pyramids, cone on top of cone, or pyramid on top of pyramid. And that is the same. This is the same size as this over here. I pulled it out. And we're looking at the base here. And I've actually put these red lines in here to show you the octagon so I could properly draw the full version of the crystal spiral rather than just jumping around 90 degrees. That's following the curvature of the crystal spiral, doing all its doubling sequence types of things. So rather than the flower of life be like this evil thing that some early followers of the crystal spiral had made it out to be, and maybe that's a thing of the past. I certainly hope that it is, because what I like to share here is basically it's just giving you another view of the same spiral that's equally as acceptable and actually puts it into a greater level of perspective than your 2D version of just looking at it from a top-down view like this. And it's easy to draw in the hexagon perspective. There may be other tilts that you could do, but this is one of the classic orthogonal drawings: square view, hexagon view, the pentagon view, etc. Well, this one is a nice way to show what this looks like in the two views. So all these views are essentially with this down at the base here. That's all that's happened here is we've just tilted that. This is what it looks like. If you like your spiral to be 2D and you believe this is a 2D version, then that's fine. It's a flat geometry view. If you want the spiral to actually follow the geometric proportions of a doubling sequence spiral, that's important to match what we're seeing on the 2D, bringing it into 3D, well, then the 70.528 spiral and the cones that I'm showing you are that cone. That's the trajectory of this spiral, okay? I know some have tried to place it in the octahedron, but the proportions are all going to be squished. It's not going to actually stack spheres, and that's the key thing here. It's not going to stack spheres on top of one another like this that are all half the size of the previous one, okay? So this is half the size of smaller, half the size smaller, half the size smaller onto the 0 point, okay? Half size smaller until we can get to wherever that ends. 0 is half size, half size. Now that's why this is the cone that sets up that angle, right? Because all these circles, or there were circles here, there's spheres in my mind, all these are, this line is tangent to all those. That's creating the wedge to create the cone. It's going to encapsulate dropping little spheres in a cone that are all half size all the way down. And the octahedron by itself cannot do that. So inside it is this cone. And it's this cone that's in the tetrahedron and the hexagon, as I showed you before. And now I'm showing you in square. And and if you want to put it in square view and then you need the octagon to show the full version of the crystal spiral, because it has to follow around 135-degree angle turns, because these are just portions of an octagon. So you need your portions of an octagon to go around as the spiral is working its way up. Now you may be saying, well, as a crystal spiral follower, that one of the big things is having that spiral meet at a 0 point going towards some sort of geometric center. And I'm just sending it off into the top of some pyramid. But remember, this is where the truncated octahedron comes in, because that's the cone and pyramid that if we flip that around, here's the same flower of life that I just showed you with that pyramid. I said, I'll just draw out a lot of little circles, show you the big seed of life that contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flower of life patterns all intermeshed, locked together, that are now giving you the drawing of the cone, or the pyramid that contains that cone. Here I'm just basically showing these rectangles, which we know are squares. If we tilt the form, that rectangle is this, and there they all meeting at the 0 point at the center of that form, which is the 0 point of the octahedron. It's the 0 point of the cube. It's the 0 point of every form. It's the 0 point of even pentagon forms, because at the center of each of those, which are the icosahedron, which is also a hexagon base, also meeting at the center of just one single form we're talking about before it gets all interlocked with other forms. We got the center point being at the center of where this cone is meeting. That's that pyramid. Okay, so we should really, in sacred geometry, not get locked into one way of drawing things, because each of these perspectives are going to give us a whole new appreciation and unlock more and more of your sacred consciousness to see how many perspectives are all one thing. Many sacred perspectives are all one thing. Now, as you can see here, I have showing a few different circle templates, and the axial view, axial basically means that I have the hexagon face flat here. So take this hexagon, just tilt it all the way around so it's flat, and that's kind of an axial view. Well, that's built on the seed of life, continued out, look kind of large version of the flower of life in a very cool technique. I'm very excited to share more and more of these techniques. And we have two square view versions, which are going to give us an axial square view. So this square, that's a face, the square face view, right? Flip that up, boom, to the top. So now that's over here. Well, that's the axial square view. So that's an octahedron kind of with the side. This is also an axial view as well. But the square face is over here and it's rotated to the side. Excuse me, we tilt this one this way. So that should be flipped 45. I also have this in a decagon view here that I drew up, and this was a very, very tricky drawing. Lots of complex lines to get in there. But the reason I was doing that and did it and discovered it afterwards was because I wanted to discover this form here, which was how do we turn into the compound of 5 truncated octahedron? What does that look like? Well, it looks like this, and it's kind of in between. And back to my master class of the core forms, which are the compound of, the higher level octahedra, of higher level dodecahedra, compounds of 6 dodecahedron, compounds of 6 icosahedra, those things. Well, this is really an in between, kind of the icosahedron and dodecahedron compound, giving you the small triangles and the little tiny pentagon faces. So the truncated octahedron is kind of in between, but check out my cosmic geometry videos to learn more about those higher level nesting of the platonic solids. Now, back in the previous slide before that one, I showed you these different views down here. Well, what if there was actually one view or one drawing that could do all 4 of them? And there actually is. And it is that extended seed of flower of life pattern out to the sides there, like that. And believe it or not, that one circle template can draw all 4 of those views. It cannot do the decagon one view probably very easily. That's got to go to the golden seed of life to do that. But all the variation of those 4 views, including the axial hexagon one, are all in here. So I know it looks probably like a geometric puzzle to unlock, but it was certainly a geometric puzzle to discover it for me. But I thought it was very interesting that the 2 square view drawings, even though they have beautiful circle templates and easier to do other things with because they're just for that purpose, can be drawn in this circle pattern with the line, finding the lines within here to draw them. Because basically all we're doing is we're rotating the form around like this, right? And by rotating the form like that, all we're doing is we're kind of flip-flopping it around as we rotate the form through space. And we just need 2 points to stay stationary. All right. And that is, if I was holding the form right here between my 2 fingers on the left and right, I could basically rotate the form through my fingers, like basically I'll do it with the regular octahedron, my truncated ones over there, just by doing that. Right. And as we do that, we're going to get different snapshots, key stopping zones, basically, that really hold more of the fundamental proportions of sacred geometry, the square view stopping points and the hexagon stopping points along the way. No, there it is again. That's the tilted this way a little bit, so it's not really in alignment anymore with that hold it between your fingers rotation that I was just doing it. It's been tilted to give you something completely new, and you have to use, for hexagon view, the golden seed of life. In my previous video, I showed you a pentagon drawing of that. Okay, now, after all that, learning about the perspectives, now we can get to and appreciate the grand finale of how does all this relate to Metatron's cube. Now, I didn't draw the hexagon around it, We easily could. It would still mean the same thing. So I'm not worried. Don't worry about that. And it could be sometimes a cube. And in many of my videos in sacred geometry, I continue to address that once we call something, we label a form around this, then we can lock our consciousness into a particular way of always seeing that this is related to a cube, just by continually reinforcing Metatron's cube, Metatron's cube, Metatron's cube. We just hammer in that it's a cube. And I've showed over and over again in other ways that, it could, especially with the Platonic solids, dodecahedron and icosahedron, that you could turn the whole pattern into an icosahedron and check out the Metatron's cube class. Now, yes, it can easily be an octahedron. And I just want to point this out for viewers that are not familiar with this, that have done some major correction work on Metatron's cube to show that the icosahedron and dodecahedron golden ratio forms are not accurate in that drawing at all. And it is the outline of what this is a icosahedron is called an icosahedron in the traditional drawing of Metatron's cube is an octahedron, okay? Two equilateral triangles within inside one another is essentially this, and that's an octahedron from the side view. And if I flip it back to its triangular face like that, that essentially is that drawing, just drawing long lines on the triangular faces of the octahedron, because remember, it just has equilateral triangles, 8 of them, and we're just drawing lines on it. That's what that drawing is. And I feel like after spending about 2 years probably talking in my YouTube videos a lot about that, I feel like there's some completion on it after releasing this Metatron's Cube remastered course, that I felt like I could finally breathe a little bit around it and explore Metatron's Cube for the other possibilities. And that led to, let's go back to some non-golden ratio geometry and explore what's in here now that this is all cleared up, because this is clearly just an octahedron. And here's the big unveil for my new perspective on what Metatron's cube is. And as you're going to see, this is where the Krystal Spiral comes in and relating it to the pyramid that I was just talking about. So here it is. Ta-da! This is the Metatron's cube design, or star, Metatron's cube design. This is constructed completely from those 6 pyramids of the 70.528 degree base angle, and that creates a central octahedron, which is the star at the center of the form. So essentially, when these bases of each of these 6 all join in the middle around this same central circle, we're making this fruit of life design, right? There's 13 circles. Picture all those meeting together. And when they do, they're going to make an octahedron in the middle of this. And that octahedron is going to extend out to the height of the pyramid, right? This bigger pyramid than the regular octahedron, right? And when that extends out, that's going to meet at the fruit of life center points on the far circle. So picture these 3 circles joining in. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we've got our 13 circles all sharing the central one. And that is my new view of Metatron's cube, completely generated from a shift in perspective that those are 70.528 pyramids rather than anything else. And it's 100% every single line that Metatron's cube is. There's been a lot of discrepancy for me around figuring out why this line goes to the center like this long edge here, right? Well, that's the edge of one of these pyramids. And the Krystal Spiral, as I've talked about so much so far previously here, is contained within that shape of that pyramid in that cone, 100%, it's in there. Basically, that means each of these cones, or each of these pyramids containing that cone, are going to be within this design as well. So Metatron has met Krystal, and they get along great. very well. A great partnership, actually. There's no locking up of anything because this is a complete reorganization in one's consciousness of how to view this. We're looking at angled pyramids from just a perspective drawing shift rather than it being some flat hexagon plane that goes on forever, just locked up. We have these tilted pyramids. We've got this is now showing you here, if you look at these as solid pyramids rather than just the lines crisscrossing. I'm going to show you some builds of this in a little bit. If they look at solid, so now I've got a dotted line on the back of three of them, right? That's the base's dotted line. And then I've got on the other side, I've got the dotted line on the face of the long edge of the pyramid on these. Now, as I join all those together, it's tricky to find where this little seam mark in the middle, because as you join these together, they're going to all meet at this location. But I was able to do that and come up with this, I'm calling it the Metatron star, I guess, in this Metatron's design, because it's no longer really a cube. To me, it is an octahedron in this 100%, but I want to keep some flexibility open, and I want to just call it a star, because that's pretty open-ended. It does look like a hexagram star, and this is also a star with 4 points rather than 6 points. So we're going to keep some room that this can be a lot of things depending on how you want to look at it. But I think a fantastic way that I think is great is really looking at it with these lines of the design, because they are all, as I said, 100%, every line in this is the Metatron's cube line layout, as of this one over here with this cool drawing technique there. Now, this is even more of the line setup, okay? Is just every line is what it is. But here's the two stars here with 4 points and 6 points. And of course, this has 6 points. We just have one facing directly at us and one directly behind. And that's really the only difference there, is just a matter of perspective. Here we could see all 6. Here we can only really see 4 and one that's flat. And that's what the Krystal Spiral view, as I'm saying, is. It's a flat view of a base layer that's not really giving you a lot of geometric form. Now, there is the Cathar grid. I'm going to get into a future video and describe more and more about what that is, as it fits into this geometry, what the grid looks like. And some of my early videos focused a lot of attention on that, which I still feel pretty good about the things I was going with. But as I continue to unlock more and more of the relationships, I keep refining things and learning more about it. So the Metatron's star, this is it in this little building kit that I got a few years ago, but never used because the pieces were a little tricky to use. They're not, Zoom tools I preferred a lot more because it's just real nice straight lines. So these are a little wobbly, let's just say, but this is called Astrologic Building Kit. Got a couple of those sets a few years ago, and it was the perfect way to construct this, because I'm able to create non-traditional Zoom tool angles and show the octahedron on the inside. And here you can see it more as like a wireframe model here. Octahedron, there, that square, that's the octahedron. And from this view, that's also the octahedron. Here is the pyramid. Here's one of them. Now we're looking at it with the root 2 base. We're looking at an edge view like this rather than like this. So when it's tilted to the side like that, there we go. That's the base. And that's using one of the squares of the octahedron to create it in the 4 directions. So that's that drawing I just showed you right here. There it is. Okay, so this is it as a solid, and this is it as a wireframe. Wireframe, there's the pyramid facing up. That's got the pyramid faced with the slant angle, like so, to the side. And here we go in our other view of the hexagon. And this is got the bases forming the stars, basically, or what's forming the star, which looks like a flat star, is actually 3 squares, because the octahedron, of course, is 3 squares. just interlocking like that. And we're just building this longer pyramid off it. So you have an octahedron vertice in it as the large pyramid extends out to the outside. And I got a little creative here and I said, well, let's just take this pyramid that I did over here. I want to just take the spiral and put it into the Metatron's cube design to really get them fused up and linked together here. That's showing you the base layer right into the center 0 point at the top. Now remember, I'm going to show you just flip these around into the truncated octahedron and you're meeting back this way. Doesn't matter, you could go both ways here. With the spiral going up or down here. But that's what it's going to look like if we flip it back to square view, being trajectory down at the top, top down view, which is right here. There's your top down view. So just rotate this whole form to square view, and then you have your top down view. And then I had a little bit more fun here, and I decided to just rotate all those into just a few of them. Remember, there's a lot of spirals, infinite amount going around the inside of this cone. But you could get your idea of the toroidal type of energy, especially when you have a few more added into them. But remember, we're meeting at the base level and they're all joined together. So we're not seeing all the blue spirals in the middle, but you pick up some of them, but they're working their way out. And now we have got 2 spirals meeting at each of the points, in addition to the one facing, well, we only have 6 here, right? Because we don't have one in the middle here. That's just on the inside design. Okay, so now this I actually discovered before all that and led me to Metatron's cube because one morning I woke up and I was like, hey, you know what? I wonder what's going to happen if I compound 6 of those pyramids into an octahedron with an octahedron layout like this, basically. That's what I did. I made 6 compound of the octahedron, and essentially what it did was it made this galactic cluster. That was the best word Nancy Benefer had for it. The galactic fusion, galactic compound. The galactic cluster, right? So all this is 6 of those pyramids, and we have the 6 out here, which are the points, and those are making the octahedron, but at the same time, it made the truncated octahedron. Now in light black here, I don't know if you could see the truncated octahedron in the outline, but that is this crisscross of the hexagon faces by the bases of the pyramids. All that's really happened here is instead of, it's just extended Metatron's cube, basically. Let's just go back to the Metatron's cube drawing. We are just extending this line out all the way a little bit further to make the pyramid a little longer. And as it extends out further, all that's going to happen is it's going to create a new base that is larger, and that base crisscrosses, all the bases cross to go ahead and create, here's 3 bases, the white base, the blue base, and the light blue base are all crossing there to create that compound of the truncated octahedron hexagon right there. There it is, the drawing, and the truncated octahedron and this octahedron are the perfect overlay in the flower of life. You could draw a truncated octahedron so easily in there without ever drawing any other lines to do the drawing. It's a perfect outline in the flower of life. A lot of other little setup lines to draw this, and I don't have them on there for that image. But here is another way to visualize this rather than the form, because now it's a little better in not dealing with perspective of the photograph of the form that I built. This is a lot of tricky joinery here to figure out all these angles to construct the form. But I have those templates, and I am going to make that available in the Metatron's class for you, so you can have that net to construct one of these never before seen creations. But perfectly in case all your Krystal Spiral, Metatron cube, Metatron star geometry, all in there. Now, here's the downward pointing pyramid, you can see it's just a square within a square, and that's what's happening, squares within squares, but you have the crossing ones. So there's a big green pyramid facing up, blue one over here, got another one there. So that's a cool one to really check out. Really amazing form. I couldn't believe that that's what it created, and was even more surprised actually that it turned out to be just one step further than Metatron's cube, but I had to work my way back to that. But the first form that I discovered in all this, which I'm not there yet, which really led to all this, is going to be coming up. But let's take a look at this galactic compound here with the pyramids all joined from a square view perspective, but it's been rotated, right? So it's in a new circle template that I came up to draw this specifically for this and other forms related to it. Another nice one I'll teach in that class. So it's got the same doubling sequence cone. It's creating the base is creating the truncated octahedron, and the vertices are giving you the octahedron, the large one. So if you draw a straight line over here in your mind's eye, you'll see that all those are just lined up. And the truncated octahedron is dividing an octahedron edge. So just pretend there's a line going all the way around this, because when it comes down to it, it's really like, how many ways do you want to subdivide the inside of an octahedron? Essentially, everything I'm showing you here is in this octahedron. So I'm just showing you there's more in there than we thought. And there's more to do with that pyramid and that cone than I've ever seen described. And it relates, the path to this for me was the Krystal Spiral of figuring out what's going on with the geometry of that cone. And it's all related because, you know, I wouldn't come up with those great drawings if I didn't learn a lot from the golden ratio pyramid and the Russian pyramid about how to do drawings like that and ask these questions. So it's all a spiraling path, you know, of hopping from one spiral to the next, and each time you go around a spiral, you learn a little more. But it's really, as I'm saying, it's all in this octahedron, which has no lines on it. It looks hollow to you, right? Maybe no cones, no spirals in there for some of us, the way we look at this. But this now is really all geared up with many spirals from both the hexagon faces and the square faces. But the one that really I was super excited about that really led me to both of those forms, which was in my following out my evolution of discovery here, was this one, the octastar, or the crystal star, because I first asked in that sequence, what's going to happen if I take those octagons that I showed you before, which I knew is the heart of the spiral. That is this cone here, or this is the octagon base spiral. And I knew that the octagon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the other side, just what we see here, that was the real core foundation of the spiral. Because especially to look at it through the perspective of the Krystal Spiral, which, as I mentioned before, was based on the octagon. So I asked, what would happen if I take those and put them into this geometry of an octahedron, right? And, you know, I had to find out where that little segment of the joining spot is, where they meet, where they crisscross the lines, and figure out all the drawing structure to produce the form, which is this one here. I like Vajradhara and the Vajra Yogini together in the background there. That's nice to join there in this octastar. But the crystal star can also be drawn here in the seed of life as well. And we also have it shown, one of them from the side, all related to the Krystal Spiral. So this is really at the core of it. And it's just, regardless of what geometry you want to put this in, I think that the this cone, basically it's the cone. That's the key of this whole thing. As I showed earlier, that the cone that fits around, there's the octastar, another one I did. Krystal star or octastar, really giving you some choices here. If you're really in a Krystal Spiral and like this, you can call it that. If you don't, call it the octastar. With that little cone, so here's the little cone from the tetrahedron, right? That little cone will fit right on this. And that's but following the path, same cone. Whether you take it out of a tetrahedron or put it on an octagon or inside one of those other pyramids, all the same. And that's really the big takeaway, was way back to that earlier template, which so happens to be with the tetrahedron, way back to our sacred consciousness image right here. This cone right here at the bottom, which also has a golden ratio division point built into the construction of this design, right here where it crosses the vesica. This right here, that little cone, that cone is the kickoff to putting it into any type of polygon-based pyramid that you want, and many of them fit into these core structural forms. So basically, to sum this all up here, is we have some new sacred geometry. There's some classic templates that we've done. I really like this new template that I worked with for drawing these particular forms. I found out all the techniques to draw both the crystal star, the Metatron star, and just simply galactic for the last one. Nancy Beneroff gave that name. And we have all these forms here. And you can see here's the Metatron star, no longer a cube in my view, but to me in this, it's mostly an octahedron, but there are cubes generated within that. We'll keep it as a star, crystal star, and going suit with the names that already exist. I'm happy to go with all of them and come up with something new. Can't go with galactic star because galaxies are filled with many stars. So this one is definitely filled with many of those, and a lot of geometry for people to unpack within all of that, as I can continue to discover more and more about all the nesting of the forms that are related to that, that go inward and outward. And the whole flower of life pattern, when you look at it this way, takes on a whole new meaning. So I hope that this video has given you a greater appreciation, especially if you were into a camp of one that did not appreciate this circle pattern at all. From the Krystal Spiral perspective, I hope that this gave you a little bit of a different way to at least entertain some ways that this can relate to the sacred geometry that you see found in the Krystal Spiral. And when you start to look at this circle pattern, realize I'm just showing you lots of little cones that can continue to be smaller and smaller. You'll see an infinitely fractal, spirally universe going on here. And this is just going in one direction here of a few different sizes here, two different sizes, the large one and the smaller ones, or three different sizes. So you could continue to make different overlapping pyramids in here, completely revolutionizing the way that I view this pattern. And I hope it does for you too. It gives you a lot of creative ideas and ways to think about this, not only as the structure of the forms that are found in there, as we've always said, flower of life, containing all the forms of creation with golden circles, that is, but also really giving a relationship to the energy that moves through in terms of the spiral and the cone within that pattern. And I think that's the unique thing about looking at that pattern through the lens of those pyramids, like I am showing in these designs, or this design, or this design. So there it is. That's the Metatron's cube, Metatron's star design. One last cube to remove from the title and switch it over to star. The Metatron star design there, completely made of these pyramids, in my view, and the best link to the Krystal Spiral. All right, that's it I've got for you for the presentation. I hope you enjoyed what you saw there for the 2024 kickoff video. Lots more cool things, already more discoveries coming out this morning, but let me do a little show and tell because I've been making so many cool forms and I love to share them with you. Here is the galactic from a few different views. And there it is. So what I realized just probably right before doing this video, it really clicked for me, is basically this form is not only the pyramid going out, it's also turning the pyramid around and going in at the same time. So it's the inward and outward pyramid meeting inward and outward all in one. And here is, I mean, this is just the fused version of the Metatron's star version here. Not a lot of internal geometry to see there, but it was a fun little mystery for the geometer that I am to try and figure out that little meeting spot. Here's the wire model. As I said, not too happy about some of the little bends that are going on at this joinery, but bear with me here and at least enjoy the process of discovery and using what I have at hand to do this fast and simply. Well, it wasn't too simple, but it took a little bit of reiteration to figure it out, but there's the octahedron. Remember, those are the bases inside, each of these being the pyramids built off of that. And here we are just slightly tilting it. You could see the square at the base there. There it is from the hexagon view, side view 1, side view 2, square views. Here is my the crystal star, or the octastar with the octagons. Remember, this is the cone. Fits perfectly on the top. Now remember, that little cone, octastar, hexagon view. And it's an octahedron, but made out of an octagon core. And here's that little cone. It fits inside tetrahedron. And this was just straight up from, there's my hand drawing. So all can be done hand drawn. It's a great initiatory way to get into sacred geometry. And here was my Krystal Spiral one, right in there in the center. Here's the cone, all hand drawn. There it is. It's a fit. Here's a smooth spiral on one. Right. So all this stuff fits and links together. Here's the one with the octagon faces. This is the octastar. Turn those octas back, pop them down this way. Go ahead and see if I can remove them. Oh, there we go. Pulled it right out. And I'll go ahead and give you a little inside view. There's all the red and blue pretty much meeting up. Tried to get them all crammed in there, but there's the inner geometry of the cones going into the center, all meeting at the middle with inside the truncated octahedron with the octagon faces. All right, and this is another cool one. A little two tetrahedrons joined on the top and the bottom. Another exploratory one on the journey. All right, that's all the show and tell for today. Thanks so much for joining me. It was really great to start off the new year with you, and I'm looking forward to bringing more to you soon. All right, much love and appreciation. All the best this new year. Check out the New Geometers Facebook group. Check out New Geometry courses if you want to join me with some drawing. Already some great pre-recorded courses there. And in addition, more to come with the new Krystal Spiral class, Cracking the Crystal Code. All right, much love and appreciation. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.